All right, so we have before our regular meeting tonight, we have three public hearings which were advertised for tonight. One of them is a conditional use hearing. It's the application of Vesuvius to amend their conditional use approval. They were previously approved, they were initially approved back in September of 2014. They filed for an amendment, and this will be the second application for an additional amendment to the application and the approval. So we'll take that one first. Then we have two that are sort of related. As you know, we've been working on a codification of all your ordinances, and we have a hearing. We're required to hold a hearing on the codification ordinance. We'll do that second, and related to that is as part of the codification process, you made, or you will be making, some changes to your zoning ordinance. You won't be changing your zoning map or any of the districts, but there's some minor language changes which bring it up to date with the state law, which is the municipalities planning code. They're very small, they're very technical, and they're mandated by law, so there's not a lot really to debate. But because your codification involves some changes to the zoning law, there's some additional requirements, one of which is that we have to hold a separate hearing just on the zoning changes. So in essence, we will have three hearings, and then we'll go into your regular meeting, and you can vote on each one of those applications. So the first one, and I'll start off each one of these by introducing certain exhibits into the record, and I'll try and do that as quickly as I can.
Gwen.
Okay. Please.
Yeah. So the first matter we have before us is the application to amend the conditional use approval granted to Vesuvius for the property at 200 Deer Run Road on September 15th, 2014, and as previously amended by a decision dated March 16th, 2015. The exhibits will be Exhibit 1 is the proof of legal advertising. And I'm going to give these all to you. Exhibit 2 is the letter that went to the applicant notifying him of, or it, it's a corporation, right? Notifying it of tonight's hearing. Exhibit 3 are the photographs and the and the notice which was posted advising residents of tonight's hearing. Exhibit 4 is the original submission of Vesuvius for their conditional use approval, which is dated October 21st, 2015. And as I mentioned, it was granted.
Now that was the original application for this particular hearing. It was revised.
I'm sorry. This is the application for tonight's amendment with the drawing attached and the recommendation. Nope, not yet. All right. And it was, it's dated October 21st, 2015. And that will be Exhibit 4 is the application with the drawing attached. Exhibit 5 was the original submission. Oh, I'm sorry. Which one was the
Number
revision?
4 was the original submission dated October 21st,
Okay.
2015. And then the second one that you have is the revised submission based on the planning commission comments.
That was my
It's
question.
dated November 30th, 2015.
Oh, I see, it's redlined. Okay, that's why it was confusing. All right, so that'll be, the revised application will be Exhibit 5, also with the attached drawing. Exhibit 6 will be the letter to the Board of Commissioners dated November 2015, advising them of tonight's hearing. And Exhibit 7 will be the conditional use approval of the original application, which was dated September 29th, 2014. And lastly, there's the first amendment to the conditional use approval dated March 26th, 2015, and we'll mark that Exhibit 8. And with that, those will be the hearing exhibits for the board tonight for this hearing. Also, with that, I should mention, I should ask if there's anybody in the audience who plans to participate and speak either in favor of or against the proposed conditional use amendment. Could you stand up now and be sworn? Seeing none. Well, Mr. Fox, please. Yes, you should be sworn. Can you swear him in, please?
You do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Fox, could you please just explain for the commissioners exactly what this Second Amendment is all about? As I understand it, it has to do with meeting the minimum parking space requirements for this particular project. And I know you presented the case to the Planning Commission, and I know, and we can say for the record, the Planning Commission has recommended approval of the amendment, but maybe you want to just lay out for the board in your own words what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Perhaps beginning with your position?
Okay, my name is Ken Fox, F-A-U-X, and my company is Imperial Construction Services. I am working on behalf of Vesuvius as their owner's representative, overseeing all of the design process, all of the municipal approvals, evaluating the building when it's first purchased, and ultimately the construction when it moves forward.
Thanks.
So the reason for the request at this point is that predominantly one of the previous applications or submissions that we had provided, first, this has been a long process for Vesuvius. They have many different layers of approvals that they have to go through as an international firm with many different facilities throughout the world: China, Brussels, London, Japan, so on and so forth. And as a result, each layer of approval takes a different avenue or in a different set of circumstances to overcome, or different questions as the next level of executives ask and prod as to the design and the layout. This is an R&D facility. This is a unique facility for them, but I can tell you most of the people I deal with are PhDs, and they ask a tremendous amount of questions and continually re-ask. The collaboration on and on and on, and as a result, they're constantly looking for ways to bring the best facility possible. So in this case here, what we are requesting at the moment is the site is laid out. If you're familiar with the site, it's basically a shelf that has been excavated back into the hillside, and an existing building is there, and potential areas for growth are somewhat limited. In the original proposal, they had proposed, or what was proposed, is the addition of 36 approximately spaces. back beyond the parking lot, the end of the existing parking lot that would be, would require extensive clearing and grubbing of trees and old forest area, not to mention dealing with significant rock structures or rock within the excavation. If you are familiar with that building at all, the back face of the building, within about 14 feet of the back of the building is a vertical rock cliff. So that site was cut out and carved out, and the proposed parking was an extension. So as Vesuvius continued, please forgive my back, as Vesuvius continued investigation and research, they continued to look for programs and systems that are going in this building. And so the concepts and spatial relationships change continually to the point where now it's settled down. They're trying to get the maximum use of the space. In one regard, they're finding the building is not big enough, but they're fine at this point in time, given their employment projections. As a result, they've determined that they have 83 employees that are at the existing site. You rephrase that. They're under 80 employees now. By the time they move in, they will be at 83 employees projected at this site. Their existing site is on Campbell's Run Road. And with the 83 employees, there is also a need of 4 spaces for pool cars or vehicles used by staff that are on site full time. So that's another 4. And you have 5 handicap spaces. So 83 plus 4 plus 5 equals a total of 92 is what's minimum required. Now, with that in mind, the existing staff travels extensively, and therefore they've determined, there's 2 things I've learned. They've traveled quite extensively, and they're very, very safety conscious. And part of their safety feature is that they record and document every person that comes in and out of that facility. And they document that through their experience, there's about 7% of their staff, 6% of their staff that's out traveling to China, Japan, so on and so forth, every day as an average. That said, we believe 7%, we start with 83 employees, minus the 6 gets you to 77. You add 5 for the parking and 4 for the pool vehicles, that gets you to 86 roughly. What we are proposing, we believe we can take the existing parking, we can add a few spaces and reposition, reline, restripe to pick up the necessary parking to get us to a total of 94. Your ordinance has 2 variations. One is based on the number of employee count, which requires 67 parking spaces, or the square footage of the building, which requires 110. So there's a big variance, and what we're recommending, or we're asking for approval to go with the 94 that we propose, and the additional spaces back in the woods be deferred until such time that staff, if they ever get there, would require the additional spaces. Okay, that was winded, I'm sorry.
No, that was my understanding as well, and I believe that is reflected in the recommendation of the planning commission. Am I right, Glenn? I think it is.
There are, just one additional note is that they had, the planning commission asked about employees ride sharing, and they went through their surveys, found out there are 4 employees that currently ride share at their existing facility. It's hard to know if that will continue here, but that's 4 that we haven't talked about. And if there is an inconvenience, parking, the site is such that it's going to be an inconvenience to Vesuvius, not to the municipality or anyone using Deer Run Road. So that's our request at this point.
So just to be clear for the commissioners, The only change in what's already been approved would be a temporary deferment of the minimum required parking.
That's correct.
And the reason for that would be to accommodate you while you determine your staffing needs and what might be required in the future as you grow.
Correct. The existing facility on Campbell's Run Road over the years has been extremely stable in their workforce. They don't add significant numbers. So they believe at 94, they're going to be set for some time. But should additional space be required, it's available. And the side note is that submission has been shown on the drawings, and we can meet all water dealing with erosion, sediment control, and stormwater provisions when that parking is necessary.
One last thing. So you're okay, again, as the spokesperson for the applicant, Vesuvius, you're okay with all the other conditions that we imposed on September 14th in that decision, and in the later amendment, which was, what did we say, March 2015? So all those conditions will continue to apply to the approval, with the one exception that we will add this as a temporary deferment.
Yes, I can't recall the other conditions, but we've implied at that point that we would meet those conditions, and I don't expect that to change.
Okay, just want to be clear about that.
So I'm sorry, I'm confused. The ordinance says that you need 67 or 110?
Yes, the ordinance has two guidelines to it. And the guideline basically says 3 parking spaces for each 4 employees.
Okay, so you're saying that 3/4 of 83 is 67?
Well, I guess I need to check that math, but that's what the calculation was before.
Yeah, the problem, I think I can answer that. The problem is that it says whichever is greater, the two calculations.
I see. So going by square footage, you're saying you need 110.
One space per 500 square foot of gross floor area, 55,000 square feet. That equals 110. And then it says plus 1 space for each company vehicle normally on the site. So
Okay, so we can essentially disregard the employee count because we're saying that the square footage is the guiding factor.
that's
And
correct.
at the guiding factor, that puts us at 110 required spaces. So your proposal is basically to go from 110 spaces down to 94.
That's correct. That's the request.
And I want to make it clear, that's a temporary thing. We're not suggesting that the commissioners waive or modify the requirement, just that it phase it in over time.
And so when will that phasing happen? Is that spelled out in the proposal?
It's subject to the discretion of the zoning officer when he deems the demand at the site is such that it would be appropriate for the additional spaces to go in. He has the right under the proposal. He has the right to insist that the spaces be done at that time.
And is there any thought given to how that's going to happen? I mean, where that's going to go into this rock cliff at the back of the building?
I suspect, based on my experience today with Vesuvius, this will become a problem to them much earlier than it will become a problem to the municipality. So that could be 3 years out, 4 years, 5 years, or it could be, quite some time. But if there is an issue on behalf or on the side of the municipality, then I guess the request would be if we could be notified with a certain allotment of time. Like all corporations, Vesuvius operates on a fiscal year, and they budget their capital projects ahead of time. So if there is an issue that comes up and this commission deems it necessary, or the zoning individual deems it necessary, then if we can put in there something to say, hey, a year from now, we have to have that parking in place, I think that would be acceptable to.
And then what is that plan? How is that parking going to be put in place?
Well, it would be developed according to the original drawings
I
that were
got you.
designed and developed.
Which were what we've already approved.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you have a sense for how long you think 3 years is about the sense of how long it's going to be?
I would say 3 years would be the earliest.
Mhm.
I would probably guess a 5-year.
It-
I'm sorry.
Is the calculation of the number of handicap spots that you need based on the 110 or the 83?
I cannot answer that question. Our site civil engineer, Hampton Tech, when they put together the drawings for submission, and they typically run through those calculations as to how many handicap spaces are required based on the square footage of the building. But I will say that Vesuvius is not, except for a small little compressor room that's about 10 by 12, the size and square footage of the building is not changing. It's the same building that's there now and that has been there since '89. So we're operating under those same guidelines, same restrictions.
I had a question. I remember in a previous application from World Vision, the same parking issue came up. And in their case, a lot of their building is warehouse. So it'll never be people, shall we say. Is that a similar factor here, that some of the space is not going to be
Well,
offices?
The nature of their space at 50, and round numbers, at 55,000 square feet, about 30,000 square feet of it is industrial type space. And that industrial type space has very specific equipment. For example, a kiln the size of this desk for melting steel or aluminum. You know, they have other kilns that might be the size of a bathroom, or, you know, a small bathroom.
Mhm.
But that equipment is in place, is stationary. And by and large, as a research and development, it has to be available for use, but it's not used every day. So the only time additional people may be put in place if they add staff that runs this equipment on a more continuous basis. By and large, they have, as we go through the programming, they have some kilns that they don't run for weeks. They have some kilns that they run, you know, every second or third day. So I do not see them dramatically changing the use or dramatically increasing. Well, their experience in Campbell's Run Road has been very, very few or very small increases in staff over the last 15 or 20 years.
You said it's a research and development facility. What type of research and development are they doing?
Well, R&D for them, Vesuvius manufactures, I always tell people, if you watch the steel game and you see the big ladle of steel being poured out in a steel mill into a trough, that trough is a ceramic. And what they do is they produce and manufacture that trough and other types of plugs and valves for furnaces to hold that molten steel in place. So what they do at this facility is they take this product, which is, in very simplistic terms, sand and silicas, and they mix it and they add other chemicals to it literally in a concrete mixer like a mason does. And they cast that, they put it under pressure, they then fire it in a kiln to see how it's going to survive or handle it, the conditions of the heat. And they cut it up and do very microscopic analysis of those systems. That's really what they do. That's the essence. Okay.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak? I know I asked earlier, but is there anybody that wishes to speak now, either for or against the application? Well, if that's the case, we can close the record of the hearing on this particular hearing. We have two more coming, but on this hearing, we'll take the exhibits. And I think the board will probably be in a position during their regular meeting to take an executive session and or vote with regard to the amendment. But I think as far as the hearing goes, we can close the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Oh, I know, Mr. Fox, I don't mean to anticipate the vote of the board, but should they vote to allow the amendment, I know I've asked this before, would your client be willing to grant me whatever time is necessary to fill out and deliver a decision letter? Under the code, I'm required technically to get that out in writing within 24 hours of a decision. But I would ask that you give me a couple of weeks during the holiday season, if necessary, to get you written notification of the decision.
We would have no issue with that at all.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. One down. So our next hearing is on the codification ordinance. And as I said, the codification ordinance has been in the makings for a couple of years at least. Gwen's worked hard with the what's the name of the code company?
General code.
With General Code. And then and just let me say for the audience, the whole point behind, or the purpose behind a codification of your ordinances is that if you don't codify them and put them into one book, they tend to be in a box someplace all over the place, and it's hard to keep track of them. So if someone comes in and wants to know what your ordinance says for zoning, or what your ordinance says for sidewalks, or what your ordinance says for a variety, all the things that you have covered, it's considered best practices to have all that information in one codified ordinance that someone can come in and look at. Or better yet, what the technology is such now that General Code, or whoever your code company is, will actually digitalize the ordinance and will make it available to anybody who wants to use it or see it on a website. So that makes it even more user-friendly than it has been in the past. The only downside with codifying your ordinances is that it's your responsibility as the municipality to keep them up to date. So every time you pass a new one or amend one that's already in existence, it's your obligation to send it into General Code so that they can update whatever goes on the website or online. So that's the background. Gwen and I have worked after the book was put together, the ordinances were compiled. I reviewed them. Certain things had to be changed to update them and make them compliant with current statutes, current laws. Took me a few months to do that. We finished that process. It went back to General Code. They're ready now to officially codify your ordinances in one book and one code. And the law requires to do that you advertise, that you hold a hearing, and that's the purpose of tonight's hearing. After which the board can then again consider it in a motion and vote to either approve or not approve the codification. And as I said before, because part of one of the ordinances that you are codifying is the zoning ordinance, which is considered a municipal planning code ordinance, which has its own requirements, we have to actually do that in a special or separate hearing. So I suggest what we do is we do what we did last time, take there are two exhibits for this hearing. One is the proof of advertising. That will be Exhibit 1. And second is a copy of the ordinance itself. Gwen, do you know what number this will be? I'd like to,
No.
okay, so we'll number it later before we give it to you.
Is that the numbered already? It might be.
Thanks. In Exhibit 2 then is a copy of the ordinance itself. All the ordinances and all the amendments and all the changes have been available to the public and were advertised as being available to the public. So if there is any public comment and anyone wants to speak, again, to the codification, it's a good time to get up now and be sworn in. Mr. Fox, I don't see you
But I'll let you know.
there. Okay, if you get the urge. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this item on the agenda? All right, so hearing none, we'll introduce the two exhibits and actually, I just ask the commissioners if they have any questions of Gwen or of me. I think I gave an explanation for what we've done to date, but if you have questions substantively or procedurally, Gwen and I can certainly answer them.
No.
Okay, so we can close, we'll close the record on the codification. And the third hearing is a hearing with regard to the changes in the zoning amendments. The exhibits for that hearing include a copy of the new section, which, by the way, is now section or chapter 400 of your codified ordinances is your zoning ordinance. So we will make chapter 400 an exhibit 1. And it's not numbered. Okay, it's okay. We can number it later. It's not a big deal. And then the proofs of advertising again be Exhibit 2. And then because it's a zoning ordinance, we're required by law to submit that to the county planning department more than for a 45-day review period. It was submitted on November 3rd, 2015. That'll be Exhibit 3. I take it we have not received any responses from the county?
No.
Okay, and also because you have joint comprehensive zoning in Aleppo Township with Glen Osborne and your other neighbor, Sewickley. Because of that, we are also required to give notice to them if we are going to make any changes in our zoning ordinance. So in addition to notifying the county of the amendments, we also notified Glen Osborne and Sewickley. And we have not received any comments back from them.
No, I received one question from Sewickley just asking if there was anything new in it or whether it was just this process. And I explained that it was the process, so they did not have any other comments.
So with that, I will, if you want, I can point out to you what the changes are in the zoning amendment or in the zoning ordinance, what the amendments include. But I can tell you that they are all changes which are required by the state law. They are all technical and procedural in nature. They don't affect your districts. They don't affect your uses. They don't affect your setbacks. So unless you want me to read them to you, which I'm happy to do, I think that's a pretty good summary of what you have.
How about if you randomly pick 3?
Yeah, and this is caused by the codification?
Yeah, because what happens is when you don't codify or even recodify that often. So when you do, the idea is you use that occasion to go through what you have and update it. So you're not just throwing all the old stuff together, but you're actually using that excuse to go through and weed out the old ones or the ones. So
It's not necessarily caused by the codification. Codification is an opportunity to catch
Opportunity, it creates the opportunity.
existing,
correct. It's an opportunity, and it's a process. And that's why it takes years. Where's I have that. No, one second. Because I can tell you what it's
Water, want some water?
So. So specifically. Here we go. Give me a second. Here we go. All right, so on the zoning amendments, the changes are, I'll sum up. Section 493B is revised. It deals with political signs, and it's in your sign section of your zoning ordinance. And it now reads, political signs not to exceed 6 square feet in size shall be permitted. They may be erected 4 weeks prior to an election and must be removed within 1 week after the election. That is currently state law now. I'm not sure it was when you originally did but you do have to allow political signs, and you do have to take them down 1 week after the election.
Who enforces it?
Your zoning officer. The other change, section 400-128 deals with fees and permit fees. So every year you can review the fees associated with any one of these zoning permits, an application for a conditional use like Mr. Fox had, or an application for a variance, or an application for a subdivision plan. They all have fees associated with them. Previously, you didn't have a fee section in that ordinance. Your ordinance now includes language that says, the Board of Commissioners shall establish by resolution a schedule of fees for the obtaining of permits required under the provisions of this chapter. The resolution shall be duly recorded in the resolution book of the township, and such fee schedule shall be reproduced and made available upon request at the township building. Those are the 2 changes to your zoning ordinance.
That's it. The
That's
political
it.
signs and the fees.
Political signs and the fee schedule by resolution.
And who reviewed the existing zoning to determine those 2 changes? How did the 2 changes get identified?
Well, they were actually brought up by general code.
Okay.
The reason being that your zoning ordinance was recently adopted and had recently been amended. So I wasn't going to make any substantive changes at that point, but they picked up these 2 changes in the state law, and they sent them to me and recommended that we make those, they picked them up.
Good.
So if there are no other questions.
So does it go
Oh,
far
go
enough to consider this sort of an audit that we are at this point convinced that our zoning ordinances are in keeping with state law?
Oh, I think your zoning ordinance is, I mean, I haven't looked at every section, but it's a very up-to-date ordinance. I mean, and comparing it with where you were, and that's partly because we went through a 2-year,
3-year.
a 3-year process to update your zoning ordinance, even before the codification. So the codification was just a revisiting of a very recently amended and updated ordinance. So yes, you're very up to date. And I think I think the best practices recommendations now are that you revisit your zoning I would say every 2 to 5 years, just for that purpose. But in your case, you're 2 to 5 years away from a review. Let's put it that way.
Good. Okay.
If that's it, we can close the record on the 3rd hearing. And again, I imagine that'll be something that the board will be able to act on in their regular meeting tonight with a vote. And anything else that anyone wants to add before we excuse our court reporter? Okay, you're done.
Thank you for the medical.
That's off the record.
So I'm gonna give you the exhibits
Right.
before you leave.
Just let us know, Harlan, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I just want to give her the exhibits. You can go ahead and do the meeting. I'm just gonna put these together for her.
Okay, then I'd like to call this meeting of the Aleppo Township Commissioners to order. We'll start with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Gardner,
Present.
Vice President Dobler,
Present.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones,
Present?
Solicitor Stone,
Present.
Manager Patterson.
Present.
I move to approve the minutes of the workshop meeting of December 14th, 2015.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I move-
Motion-
I move to grant the amended conditional use approval to Vesuvius USA as stated in the exhibits.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dobler,
Yes.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I move to adopt the 2016 real estate tax ordinance.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dobler,
Yes.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones.
Yes. I move to adopt the 2016 budget.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dobler,
Yes.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries. Need a motion to adopt the 2016 budget ordinance.
Your turn, Matt.
Well, I'll let you do that.
I move to adopt the 2016 budget ordinance.
Second?
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dobler,
Yes.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I am pleased to move to adopt the codification ordinance.
You want that privilege.
I am pleased. I think it's going to be,
I second.
I think this is going to be great for us, and I do want to thank Gwen and Harlan for your long and hard work on this. I know it's been a difficult process, but it's important.
Anything further? Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dilworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones.
Yes. I move to amend the zoning ordinance to reflect codification updates as stated.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dilworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Scholar, Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I move to amend the subdivision ordinance to reflect codification updates.
You're not gonna need to do that because upon further review, we did not make any changes to
Okay.
the subdivision.
I retract.
Okay. Next is a discussion of vacating Havala Road. I think
Do you wanna have that?
we don't need it, just a brief summary of what we're
Brief
doing.
summary. That's something that has been in the works at least for the last 6 months. I have been going back and forth with the attorneys for Masonic. Initially, they were very interested in having this done by the end of the year. They thought they had control over all the residents, and they thought that they could present us with a consented to petition or proposal. As it turns out, for a variety of reasons, none of which I'm privy to, but I don't think there was anything that anyone objected to. They just had a hard time getting organized and getting all the other residents on board. Timing wise, there were some health issues. And so instead of presenting it to us as a consented to presentation or proposal, they're going to present it to us as a petition. And so there's a slightly different process involved where you can't get the signatures, the consented to signatures of all the other neighbors. And there are a couple other neighbors, which I don't think they realized when they started. So I have a petition from them. They need to present some other materials, all of which we need to advertise an ordinance, which I have drafted, which is prepared. I am working with their attorney, and we're working to try and have everything together for your review. What did we say, Gwen, January or February? January.
Probably, I mean, maybe January, but for advertising, it wouldn't be adopted until February.
Right, but we could probably, we expect that you'll be able to advertise it. You'll hold a hearing. We don't anticipate any objections from anybody. But like I said, because of the logistics involved in getting all the signatures, I think they just felt it would be easier if we just
Okay, so
scheduled a hearing.
reading from the GRB December 3rd cover letter, I understand that the township may seek to have winter maintenance of Habala Road performed by Masonic Villages, which our Public Works Department would appreciate.
Right, and I have not gotten a response to that.
It says there they haven't. So we would like to see that occur.
Yeah, I
Right, Tom?
I have no problem with that.
Are there property owners who use the road now, or is it pretty much nobody's using it?
No, just people that live in those couple rentals, which Masonic owns, those rental properties, so there's no township residents that use that road.
Well, take, for example, I think his name is Brown, the financial man from Masonic Village. Doesn't he use the road?
Well, there's, yes, Masonic residents, yeah, that live on the road, but they work for Masonic. They
Mhm.
live in those houses there, they work for Masonic, yes.
Okay, but they're renting.
They
Okay.
rent from Masonic, yes.
Okay.
So that's my progress report. We thought we would be ready for tonight, but it turns out it probably won't happen until January or February.
So please push the issue of winter
Push the
maintenance.
maintenance. Yeah, I understand the urgency of that.
Okay, anything else on that?
No.
Okay. Reports, public safety.
We on the air?
Watch your language.
No, I just wanted to go there. Excuse my voice, I am fighting a bit of a chest cold here. We have 2 months to report, correct? First one will be October. Alarmed residents 2, alarmed business 1. Get a fraud case. This is just the IRS scam. We get them every day. Unfortunately, I think our federal government just instituted that they are not going to be allowed to use the phone system to track people for IRS payments. So all these fraud cases that we had are now going to become, I don't know what. It's just crazy.
Hey, Chief, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
I hope the board doesn't mind it. It's sort of a
Nope,
personal thing.
Please.
I get these phone calls every other day telling me that the IRS, yeah.
Them.
Is there any place where I can I report that to someone?
No, because they're all offshore. They're all out of country. Nobody will follow up on it. Nobody will do anything about it. So it's just it's a nuisance call. Just ignore it. Don't.
That's what I do, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I'd like to get rid of it.
The do not call process doesn't cover this.
No, because it's coming from offshore. It's coming from, they robocall these from another country somewhere,
Myself,
and nobody can stop it.
I can block them, so.
One way of making it more difficult and bringing that to, tell them that that the people do not live there, here anymore. There's no resident here anymore.
It's on my cell phone.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
They must get some database because when we get them, it seems to be a certain locale. Like Aleppo will get them all of a sudden, then Emsworth will get them. So they must be getting elderly or anybody over 55, because that's who they hit most.
That's terrible.
Criminal, yes, sir. The criminal mischief, which was a person with Alzheimer's that wandered away from the house, and then we located them at another residence down Glenfield Road. We did have a DOA, was a drug overdose. In part of that missing persons report. You had a domestic, 2 fire calls. These would be alarm fires, lockouts, medical emergency assist, 2, trees down 2, animal complaints 1, 2, 3, 24 citations, and 2 welfare checks. That was for the month of October. And then for November, alarms residents 2, alarms business 2, harassment report. This was a boyfriend, girlfriend. He left his phone there. Big mistake. When you leave, take your phone with you. Because when you're gonna go back, sometimes you might not get what you go for. Ordinance violation. Somebody thought it was shots in the woods fire, but it was kids playing with fireworks on Glenfield Road. Motor vehicle accident and seven citations, 2 non-traffic citations, and 2 accidents, 1 involving injury and 1 not involving injury. That's all I have. Ron?
What about the power outage? Did that come across your?
It won't come in as a call. It's not gonna show up as a call, but, I mean, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, there was what was it? Within the last 2 or 2 weeks, there was a power outage. At least the lights went dim. And I was just curious as to whether it was a transformer that blew or was it an accident?
Yeah, it might be under fire call. It could be under fire call, but it's not gonna, we're not always gonna know, because what happens with those, a transformer can blow up in the distance from here, and they reroute it and regrid it, and we
Okay.
never know exactly where. it goes.
Not critical.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Chief. Fire department, no report. Emergency management, anything? I mean, Public Works,
Well, it's pretty brief for December, but in truck 58, we had to put a whole new side thing on the plow, the legs. It's the plow with the trucks. And,
Tom, a little louder, please.
and then on Duff Road, we had to make a new sign post because somebody just snapped the whole post off. All the truck traffic on that road now, because of that retirement place, 55 cluster building, they snapped our sign off, but nobody knows who. And then we had to repair a cable in our salt building. It snapped from pushing salt into it. And then we cut back dead trees on Hill Road, which are hanging out over the road, and we took them down. And then I'm sure you heard about the new sign on McCoy. I'll say no more. And then we were working on equipment in the garage for December.
Has anything come to your attention since you and Gwen and then me talked about the needs of Public Works next year? Or have we identified everything and put it into the
In
budget?
the budget, I think so.
Yeah.
Good.
Typically, you did have to spread salt the other day, right?
Friday, yeah.
What, just as an example, what time would you be doing, say, Redgate or Deer Run? How do you hit that?
Well, when the two trucks are out, Tim, who does typically this side of the hill, his first is Deer Run, then he hits Redgate.
Mhm.
That's his first two priority roads.
Mhm.
And then on the other side, it's Merriman across to Glen Mitchell. Primary roads are always done first.
Say well, if it's in the middle of the night, you're out in the middle of the night, I presume.
Exactly. Yeah, it all depends on timing.
Mhm.
But I mean, as soon as the trucks hit the road, that's the first one will be done here.
Mhm.
Like I said, Redgate sometimes you make it down like to Rhodes Avenue and it's so slick, you have to turn around and come back up and go back down Deer Run, get on 65 and come up from the bottom because it's just so slick.
Okay.
That's what happened Friday night too.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's all on the conditions of the roads and how bad it is, but those are the first two roads on the side of it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I have
Thank
one
you.
thing to add in Public Works, if that's okay. We got a letter from Squiggly Heights Manor Homes Association. It's short, so I can read it. Dear Commissioners and staff, recently Aleppo Public Works crews completed the work to shorten the islands on Squiggly Heights Drive, providing more space to turn into and out of the manor roads. The work was performed well, quickly, and with nominal traffic issues on Squiggly Heights Drive. We're hearing positive response from manor residents, and I'm sure waste management drivers are happier too. We're very grateful to Township Commissioners and staff for your willingness to work with us on this and other projects around the township and manor. As we enter the 2015 holiday season, we wish you and your families all the best. Sincerely, Sally Shipley, as president of the manor. So,
Quite nice. Good job, Tom.
I'm a digger.
So before you sit down, I had one note that I got from a resident asking again about the light on the sewer building, I believe.
Well, I guess the only thing you do is shut it off. I mean,
I don't know that that's,
I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, didn't we talk about this once before and we said we were gonna put a timer on it that made it turn off at night?
Well, when you want it on at night.
Yeah. Is it a matter,
we went to the authority, I think, the last
Yeah.
time, and maybe they were gonna put a motion sensor or something on it, I'm not sure.
Discuss that again.
is it shining on somebody's particular property?
It's bright.
It's very
Bright.
Yeah.
Could you
It's
put
LED.
What's
would it
that?
make any sense to put a shield on it to
No,
block?
I think the motion sensor would it's only needed when somebody goes there.
Exactly. Well, that and two, I mean.
Security, it's a deterrent
Security, it's a deterrent too. I
for
mean,
kids and
that
things
place
like that.
is
That's
right
why it's
back
lit. That's
Yeah,
what
but a
some-
motion
that's
detector would
what
help
also.
that. If some kids are coming up there, it'll
I
turn
will
on.
bring it up to the authority. 'cause
And to
it's
some
their-
extent, one of the difficulties is
Insurance.
deer and the squirrels and,
Yeah,
Oh, but I mean,
but
I'm
it
sure
would
the
be better
residents,
than all the time.
I'm sure the residents that are complaining about it would rather
Yep.
have it come on
Well,
when deer walks
we'll
through.
talk to the authority about it and go from there with it because they do maintain it.
Okay.
So we'll have to talk to them
I'll
about
bring it
it.
up to them.
Yeah.
Would you put that on our old business list,
to do, because it is bright.
please, and thank you.
It shines in my window.
Rather you.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, I'm a long distance away. No, it's bright.
I'm not saying you did. Close your mind.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Communications.
The only thing I want to say is that I've been pleased. I met with our manager and our secretary about a month ago, and we went over them taking the recordings of our meetings and doing the digests. And the last couple of digests that we've done, they've done. Our secretary
I was
has
gonna
done.
say,
Yeah.
give all the credit where it
Uh,
belongs.
And it's working out. It's
I
working out
noticed that. It's
fabulously.
beautiful.
So thank you very much. It's working well.
That's it?
Yep.
Planning and zoning.
Right, so on planning and zoning, there was an application made by Louis Trapezzona for approval of a subdivision plan, which
Is that what we have later in the agenda?
It's right now.
Is that,
this is, yeah. it's
yeah,
now.
okay, it's the next one, right? Go ahead.
Okay, and so he had come in, 5 years ago or so, and wanted to redraw some of the lot lines on his subdivision plan. The problem was that anytime a subdivision plan application comes into the planning commission, the first thing Gwen and the commission does is they give it to the engineer and ask the engineer to do a review and comment on it. And at the time, I guess it was KLH, did their review, and the first thing they caught was the fact that there's a structure that is built over one of the lot lines, not necessarily one of the ones he wanted to change, but when they see that, then they also look it up on the zoning map, and they saw that it was encroaching also in the setback for the next door neighbor's lot. So you have two problems there. One's private property issue where you build on your neighbor's property, that's a trespass. But in addition to that, you're inside the zoning buffer area for the side yard. So years ago, he was told that he had to correct that problem. And so he kind of disappeared for a few years and recently just came back with essentially the same proposal, only this time he was looking for the planning commission to just waive it or just grant a variance, which the planning commission really doesn't have the authority or the power to do. So because of that, it was their recommendation that his application be denied by you since it violates the zoning ordinance. So that's a basic reason to deny a planning request is if it violates the zoning ordinance.
Is a solution being developed?
Well, there have been several solutions. The one, and Gwen maybe can speak to this.
I can. There was a plan that was submitted this past spring that met the requirements, that addressed this. However, the adjoining property owner didn't sign off on it in enough time. We're working with them to try to see if we can get them to resubmit the one that works. So we're working with them.
Okay, so
The real problem here was that in order to solve that problem, the neighbor has to sell a sliver of land to Mr. Trapezzona. Instead, Mr. Trapezzona went around and got him to give him an easement to have his garage on his property. And that may solve the problem between the two of them, but unfortunately, it doesn't solve the zoning problem and it doesn't solve the subdivision
Right,
problem.
so I move to deny the approval of the Trapezzano plan of lots number 4 as submitted and as recommended by the planning commission.
I'll second that, but I want to ask a question before we vote. We talked about this last week, and we said that we don't think that the resident is going to be surprised that this has been denied.
No, he already knows that the planning commission voted, or, recommends that it be denied. So he's already aware this is not.
Seems like there's light at the end of the tunnel.
What he needs to
We
do
have a
is he
solution
needs
and we
to
just need to
go,
go back to.
he
it.
needs to go back to Plan A or
Right.
Plan B, which, solves the problem. What he came up with and what he proposed to the planning commission doesn't solve the problem.
And what he originally proposed, the planning commission agreed to, right?
And you,
Or we
this
voted on
board
it.
voted
Yeah.
to approve it,
Yeah.
but he was
And
unable
then it
to get a
expired.
second signature, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's see.
We need a vote?
We
Or
need a
did I
vote.
not give you a thing? Yeah.
Yes, you should
All in
vote.
favor.
Yep. All in favor of the motion to deny?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. A negative motion. Okay. Treasurer and finance.
The November report, the earned income tax was $20,200. There was nothing in the business privilege, the property tax, or the delinquent real estate taxes. But there was $8,646.19 for the local service tax and $2,717.05 for the realty transfer tax. And if you look at the chart, we are already $35,000 over the budgeted income. And the June business tax was 23,000. And looks like the December one, it looks like it's a 6-month kind of thing. So we should pick up and meet the business tax and the earned income tax is already $18,000 ahead. So I would say revenue-wise, we're doing very well. Any questions? Then why do I have October's? I'm way too much, sorry. Thank you. The November treasurer's report, the general fund with PNC has a balance of $133,144.53. The Pliget general investment, $54,613.93. $100,000 was transferred to the PNC account. The Pliget Plus general investment has $457,086.89, and the Pliget 27 reserve fund has a CD of $497,000, of which the accrued interest to date is $1,743.61. Liquid Fuels has $48,305.04. The Reserve Pliget Fund has $3,261.43. The CD for the Pliget Reserve is $100,000 with $433.97 of reserved interest. The Capital Improvements account has $66,823.17. The PA Treasurers Invest Program has $15,748.57. Total monies on hand, $1,378,161.14. The obligated funds allow operating net funds of $1,243,588.96. Sewer bond fund in Pliget has a balance of $99,092.67. The sewer bond fund class, which is the sewer bond fund Pliget, and then there's a Pliget class, has $253,001.03, and the sewer capital fund has $36,118.30. And I apologize for the mess on this, but the copy machine didn't like me today.
Definitely did not.
It did not
Did
like
not.
me at all. It was
I
messing up. Any
wonder,
questions?
Okay, so if I look at the tax table here,
Uh-huh.
it looks as if we're, I mean, even without December on here, we are going to have a positive variance budget to actual, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. How about on the expense side?
I don't have the,
That would be, that's in a different, that's in the financial report that I give you in a different part of your packet.
Okay, where's that?
The financial, like after the bill list,
Yeah,
and then after the manual checklist, then there's the budget to actual report.
budget. Period to date actual, no, it's liquid fuels. General fund, budget to actual.
Mhm.
Which one we look at?
Mhm.
So, help me read this correctly.
We're underspent. We're not overspent for the year.
Where annual budget,
Annual budget is the third column.
yep, 277
Mhm.
is our annual budget for 2015.
No, the annual budget, that's the net over or under expenses. The 277.
Okay,
So we're under expenses. by
because the actual is 1.3.
That is the budget.
That's the budget.
Look at the
Yep,
year-to-date actual, which is the second column,
okay.
and you'll see the total expenditures.
So total
So it
expense,
looks like we're over, but it's, I don't trust those bottom line numbers. You need to go line by line. So I can tell you, if you have a question about a particular account, and some of that includes the paving expenses that were not fully budgeted, but were paid for in this calendar year.
okay.
Are you asking about the taxes? Because that's what Charlotte was giving the treasurer's report. Are you asking for general treasurer report? or
No,
you
no, no,
want
I
me-
just want to understand where we're going to finish the year.
Okay,
So why,
there will be a surplus.
yes. Well,
There'll be a surplus of revenues.
definitely,
definitely,
positive variance, budget to actual,
yes.
right?
If you go to the final column, the budget variance on what Gwen is referring to,
Yes, I see that.
you'll see as an example, a very large 190,000 negative
I see that.
Paving.
and a 115,000.
Okay,
Those were road projects that were not budgeted for. It was primarily Overlook, right?
It was.
And that's what we've now, in order to avoid that sort of number, we've started to allocate funds from the general fund into public works. But the negative of 35,000 that you're seeing is primarily the result of that road expenditure.
If you look on
If you took
page-
it out, we had a positive.
Absolutely. If you look on page 4 of the budget to actual, and you see the numbers that George is referring to, the capital construction, the annual budget was 247 for 247,000 for paving. We ended up spending 437 in paving this year. So money was taken from the savings to fund that. We are not running an actual cash flow deficit. Money was taken from the general fund to cover that. But in future years, we hope to budget so that we won't
Yes.
have
but we don't book that money coming out of the savings into the general fund? We don't show that as revenue?
Because it's
We
not,
don't
No.
show it as revenue. It's
It's
not
not
revenue.
revenue.
It's
It's not
just taken from the
It's a,
savings,
it's a transfer of
from between funds.
funds from a general fund to a specific use, which in the past, we've done kind of after the fact. In this year's budget, we've moved 150,
Mhm.
150 from the general fund within the budget itself.
Okay,
So you won't see that number next year.
in other words, if you take money out of your savings account, that's
Right.
not revenue.
I understand that, but it's income to the general fund, is it not? I mean, it's money that's going into the general fund from another fund. In other words, if you're just showing a debt on your general fund sheet,
But it's not just general fund. There are capital accounts and our reserve accounts.
but this
are all
isn't that,
accounts
this is
too.
the general fund. This budget to actual report is the general fund.
Right, this budget to actual report shows what we budgeted
Right.
than what we spent. So the transfers from another fund that were unplanned would not show up on the budget because they were unplanned.
Because they were unbudgeted, I
Yes.
understand. And the cash still went out. But this sheet doesn't show that cash came back in from a different account, right?
Probably not, no. But there are other reports that could show that for you in the system.
Okay. So do
The
we have
regular
a,
balance sheet.
do we have a report somewhere that's going to tell us, and maybe we don't have it, I mean, we haven't closed the year yet, so I wouldn't expect this yet, but do we have a report that's going to tell us all accounts, across all accounts, where we stand on expenses?
Yes.
In January, you'll
Okay.
have that, because right now we're talking about November's finances. So our fiscal year ends December 31st, but you don't get I won't have the invoices and
And then-
everything until mid-January.
And then the detail of all the transfers will be shown in the audit.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But we expect that to be below budget or above, we expect that to be a negative variance budget to actual because we spent this unbudgeted
Yes.
money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
But it's a negative variance that's being made up for out of cash from savings.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And again, to avoid that sort of a negative number, as a result of the road study being completed, we're now going to
I got you. That's
designate
fine.
funds, so we don't see that.
And even at that, do we think that our positive variance on the revenue side will make up for this $35,000 negative variance on the
Yes.
expense side for 2015?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah, earned income tax and real estate transfer taxes far exceeded budget.
Absolutely.
And we've seen a trend toward that. Our earned income tax has increased virtually every year.
And we budgeted as another increase because we've seen enough history to see that it's coming.
Which is partly because of the law passed
It goes reported
that
directly.
tracks the
rather
earned
than-
income tax, whereas before, some
It's
people
the
weren't
honor
paying.
system.
It was the honor system.
And of course, the realty transfer tax was, 47,000 versus 15,000 budgeted. And we need more big properties to sell on it.
That fluctuates a lot.
There's a curiosity that I don't know. When a Masonic property sells, is there a transfer tax?
There's no sale.
No, because
Yeah.
they use,
That's rent.
they use a payment in lieu of taxes.
Not always.
No, but on a real estate transfer.
Yes.
There's no real
When
estate.
they buy
transfer.
a
Real estate
house.
Tax on the transfer stamps, on the
The
transfer
transfer.
tax.
So when one of the villas sells,
No.
No, when they sell, no, not at
That's
all.
an entry
Doesn't
fee.
affect us at all.
okay,
It's not a,
What about the other houses on the other roads?
Yes,
Yes.
because they're still on the tax rolls. They're
Okay.
still
Right.
single-family homes with their own lot.
okay.
what reason do we have to think that the earned income tax will continue to go up? Seems to me that's,
It's not, we don't expect it to go up hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a year. It has trended up because now we are
Catching
everyone.
It's being tracked.
yeah, but that was a couple of years ago.
It was a couple
Yeah.
years ago, and the increase came up, and it has leveled off somewhat. We're now at a much higher grouping. It fluctuates with the economy because it's based on employment.
Mhm.
I mean, the more people retire, the more it'll.
But it's
Yeah.
a steady line item bonus. We got a nice increase that's maintaining.
Mhm.
It should go up a little bit,
percent.
but it's been a nice $20,000 or $30,000 bonus.
Do we get a
Won't make
bonus
any
now that we've done so
political
good?
Pardon? Pardon?
I said, do we get a bonus now that we've done so good?
I think you should.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll help. Now, do I conclude that this is your last report, Mrs. Pierce?
Well, there's a question on whether I will report
Yeah.
December's in January or not, and I believe Mr. Stone is going to be answering that question for you at some point.
Well, I think you
We'll be
probably
addressing her report
need to
related.
make a final report in January.
I would think so.
I think you do.
I will finish the year.
Because she's here in December.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And she'll want to be exonerated from her duties, which will take her through the end of the year.
And for all of those listening in, it's a great position. They want to apply.
Charlotte, you know, I don't think you were at the last meeting. We're putting an advertisement in the Swickley Herald
Yes, I
for
was.
all 3 potential openings. And
I think that's great.
has anyone approached you by chance?
No. No, sorry.
Well, a lot of things happen by word of mouth, so.
I know. Art's gonna,
Okay.
he's gonna tell everyone.
Does that conclude that?
Mhm.
I guess the next is finance.
I move to ratify October bill list in the amount of $79,625.80. To ratify October prepaid bills in the amount of $57,292.17. And to ratify the October payroll transfers in the amount of $15,224.98.
Second?
Thank you. You saved my voice on that one. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I move to approve the November bill list in the amount of $20,803.85. To ratify November prepaid bills in the amount of $10,143. And to ratify November payroll transfers in the amount of $14,240.05.
You move.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. I move to transfer $18,634.99 from the liquid fuels fund to the general fund for payment of road salt invoices.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, thank you. Aleppo Township Authority.
I have a question. From the audience, do we know if Tom St. Clair has officially said he is not re-upping?
I spoke with him right after dinner tonight, and he and I are going to talk about that tomorrow morning.
So there is no final decision.
I received a letter. I thought it was,
We received a letter at the township today from Tom St. Clair saying that he is not interested in continuing to serve on the authority board.
Okay, and then I think during executive session, Rod will have more on that. Correct?
good, not much.
Okay.
Hope he stays.
Pardon me?
I hope he stays on.
Yipper?
He knows finance.
Is Ed back?
Pardon?
Is Ed back?
I don't
Mr. B?
know. I don't know.
Was he at the last authority meeting?
Yes.
He was
Okay.
at the meeting, yeah.
Okay.
COG,
There was a vote on Tuesday, and Harlan, I want you to help me get this right. Can you tell me exactly what the vote was on Tuesday?
They've had an issue with the executive director, and as a result of some performance issues, he was suspended, pending a review. I was involved in part of that process, and the outcome of the review was such that there was a report given to the board in the executive session. That report resulted in his employment with the COG being terminated. And the terms and the conditions for his separation from employment are subject to negotiation, which I am in the process of doing.
So that's the COG. I think there was a conversation outside of the scope of this conversation that was sort of looking forward into 2016, and the question was raised: should the COG continue to exist? Should the COG look something different in the future? I heard sort of privately that I don't think that the president of the COG, of the board of directors of the COG, wants to continue to do that in the future. So I think 2016 is going to be an interesting year for the Quaker Valley COG.
The president was the young man that presented to us?
Yep.
And is there any consequence if it dissolves that we need to deal with? I mean,
All
garbage,
the contracts that we have are coordinated by the COG and negotiated by the COG, but we actually, each municipality has individual contracts with our service providers. So we have a contract with Waste Management. We are not under a COG contract. Aleppo has a contract.
So no.
okay, good.
I'm sorry for my education. You want to say that one time?
The Quaker Valley COG, they negotiate certain contracts for us and coordinate them, but we as a municipality have an individual contract with the different service providers. So it's not through the COG, they just provide it for us. But our agreement is with Waste Management.
Okay.
Art, if I'm correct, the two big ones are garbage and salt.
I recall that.
Good.
The mechanism is another issue.
Good.
And the garbage contract is due to be renegotiated
It is.
soon. So that's the I mean, I don't know what to say other than it's in a state of flux.
We had our managers and secretaries meeting on Wednesday, and RJ was there to run it, and he was given a list of the things that the people are still interested in having them work on, which one of them was the garbage contract. So he said that he wants everyone to email any requests in, and he's made it sound like he was going to continue to work on that.
Stay tuned.
Ambulance Authority. Her representative is absent, so nothing. Sewer project.
I don't know what that payment is.
That
Motion.
is,
KLH,
yes,
I move to authorize payment of pay request number 27 in the amount of $1,400.
I'll second that.
I think Matt has a question.
No, I don't have a question.
All right.
Explain to me again why we have to pay this.
because it was ordered by Harlan, as part of its Board of Viewers map that was required to show where the lines are. So that when the Board of Viewers come and walk the township in January, they need a certain kind of map that shows certain kind of lines with the viewer numbers and the parcel numbers all provided on one map.
But didn't I see maybe last week that they put, I mean, they're billing us for like 5 hours worth of work or something? Here it is. 4 hours worth of work. 16 hours worth of work. Well, I don't understand what 16 hours worth of work is.
I mean, I know what they did, and I know what we need, what we asked them to do. I have no idea how much time, what's a reasonable amount of time for that.
But they were asked to do it because to have somebody start from scratch would have been significantly more expensive? Question mark.
Presumably. Well, also because they already had the drawings. What they had to do was take the individual drawings, put them into a master map or plan, and put certain designations for the benefit of the Board of Viewers on it. Now, again, I have no idea what's involved there.
Tom, did you have a comment?
No, I was thinking, I mean, makes good sense. The people that did it.
Right.
It's gonna be far cheaper to draw it up again.
The work was done, so. And they did.
Have we gotten the deliverable?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And it was done to the specification of the Board of Viewers. They were delighted with it, so. I don't know if that makes it any more palatable, but they did deliver.
All right, let me say, I mean, before we vote on this, I really don't like being in a position to be asked to pay for something that's already been done, that we don't really have a choice to pay anymore, because I don't want to pay KLH for work that we can have somebody else do. So I agree with what President Gardner is saying, that I don't know that we can necessarily not pay to do something, but I am not keen on being put in the position where we're asking to do that after the choice to do something has been made.
Could we simply say that in the future, any possible work or payments to KLH must meet our approval prior?
Yeah, I mean, I take some responsibility for this one, but honestly, I can't conceive of any, I mean, part of that was because there was an ongoing thing there. It was still a cleanup type of thing that had to be done, but I can't think of any projects at this point that KLH would be involved
Well,
with.
but just in the future, give us the opportunity.
Yeah, let me say that a little stronger. I mean, those who are making decisions about engaging people should be keenly aware that I will not vote to pay money to KLH in the future for things that somebody else can do.
Okay,
Fair enough.
All in favor?
Aye.
all right.
Aye. Motion carried. Solicitor,
Are you going to be executive session?
Yeah, very quick executive session. I want to update you on the Masonic litigation and the related claims involving KLH.
So Gwen, we're going to finish the agenda?
We just have action items, new business, and citizens. Yes.
Can you go through sorry. Can she go through the action items real
Sure.
quick?
Action items are the two policies that are left over, and I will get to those in early 2016. Pension analysis, I have all the documents now, so I'll be setting that meeting up also in the beginning of the year to have Pliget, the arm of Pliget, review the pensions that we have. Electronic billboards and cell towers, I had a note that said George, but I don't recall what.
I don't know if I
status of that was.
discussed this with everybody else. Scenic Pittsburgh is a not-for-profit run by Mike DeWita, former commissioner. And when we were at the conference at Seven Springs, Commissioner DeWita had asked me if I would like him to come out, it's free of charge, to make sure that we have proper ordinances in place to avoid or control electronic billboards. And then when we were at the conference, cell towers et al. Came up, and I had asked Mike if that's going to be on Scenic Pittsburgh's agenda. In other words, get free advice. But he's been busy. So that's on me.
Road bonding, Ben's gonna look into that. That's one of the projects that he has for 2016 to talk about an analysis and see if that's actually worth the process. He's gonna go study that. Industrial park occupancy, Ben and I are gonna work on that with the management over there and see where that leads. And then SWOT analysis is Matt. And then I also just added the Manor Plant light, so that'll be something that'll be added to the action.
And we understand the industrial park's for sale.
I've heard that.
Right.
oh, it's now owned by Canada.
Sun Life.
Sun Life, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice that somebody else would take it over and get it occupied. Okay, next is new business. Nothing?
Is this,
And then citizens, you want to do?
are we gonna, how's our executive session gonna work?
Harlan promised it's gonna be really brief.
Do we want to do that now?
Not quite.
Well-
Right, Gwen?
Okay.
We have one new business item.
We do,
Can we proceed?
yes.
Wow, this must be important.
Whoa.
Everything important happens in executive session. Maybe
No, this is more important.
Yes, thank you. Very good. I'm trying to catch up.
You really, I didn't know what to say.
As soon as I work on it.
That's why I couldn't get the machine to work. I was so busy. Looking at all of these.
You must be cooking.
Commissioner Dobler?
Well, I have a poem to read to our outgoing president, Rod. The poem is called The Leadership of Rod.
Was it?
The leadership of Rod is calm and collected. The opinions you offer are always respected. Your service to Aleppo began as a resident. The respect of your neighbors raised you to president. Along the way, you served on the Planning Commission, where you established yourself as a skilled tactician. Your decisions were fair and your judgment was wise. There were many solutions you helped to devise. The Board of Commissioners had a seat to be filled by somebody we knew was especially skilled. You rose to the task, humble and mild. You stayed collected when others were riled. You've been on the board in some tough situations, some times that have challenged our public relations. The sewer, of course, was a major debate that tore up the community and made people irate. But when you were selected to head up the board, you found a harmonious place that you chartered us toward. Under your guidance, we've found a sense of unity. Calmness has returned throughout our community. As the meeting is adjourned on this chapter of your career, our thanks for your service are true and sincere. So let's all remember, let's all applaud, and let's all praise the leadership of Rod.
And in thanks and recognition of his service, we have a certificate of appreciation for Rod that he's accepting now.
Thank you.
And young lady?
Turn around.
No, turn them.
I never could understand.
After all these years.
Yes. Thank you.
And Lanny, there's also something for you.
Oh, thank you.
That's for Charlotte.
I'm sharp. Oh.
And Margaret, it's for Margaret.
Right.
It's for
That's kind of like the Miss Universe badge. Lanny, we'll get something later. Oh, shucks.
Gee, that.
Recorded forever on YouTube.
From her service here in the town.
Jeez.
Well, thank you both very much.
Well, I must say that this, particularly the last 2 years in the board, have been a pleasure for me. I enjoyed working with certainly all the other commissioners, the staff, the hired consultants. Everybody to me has been very dedicated, and I think we've always worked in complete cooperation, and that's what makes it good. I've served on other boards where it's been nothing like this, so I do appreciate the time that you've all spent.
Well, then it's too late for me to recover. Charlotte, thank you also for your
Listen, I have had
hard work.
really good time. And it's gonna be hard not to come and see you.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Is it non-resident, I'm allowed to come?
You are.
Anytime.
Oh, good, okay.
We'll give you a session.
Okay.
Honorary resident.
These are absolutely beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And the poetry was outstanding. You did it all right.
Participation,
It was a team effort. Gwen helped a lot.
that's a great poem. Rod, you have been amazing.
Amazing.
Yes, you really have. I've been very impressed. I've been on a few of these board meetings since last 2 years have been wonderful.
So we have this brief executive session, and then if you guys would all stick around, because we have a few, snacks, a little reception afterwards. So just if you're willing to stick around for a few minutes, Harlan's gonna keep it really short.
I've heard that before.
Do you want to have citizens participation for any reason, Ron?
Yeah.
I'm Lenny
Citizens.
Gardner from Masonic Village. I'm glad you're getting around to the codification of everything. I don't know how long it's been a mess around here, but I've been attending these meetings for probably 12 years, 11, 12 years as a citizen, and it's improving quite a bit.
We used to hear about papers that were off in some attic somewhere.
Try to avoid that, no. Better plan.
Any other citizen participation?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We've got it.
We cannot
So you can have a meeting.